doing a lot.
Oh my God.
Okay,
Oh, phew.
the struggle.
Oh, yeah. The IDV struggle is real. Oh, man. I'm glad you're able to join finally. Oof.
I know it was weird because every time you're saying I declined, I clicked accept, and then it was just like it wouldn't load.
Yeah, okay. Wow, okay. Anyway, that's great. Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. I hope you're doing
Thank
well.
you.
I hope everybody's
Little tired, but I'm doing good.
you don't look tired, though. This show. So, okay. Yay! All right. So, why don't, do you want to just give like a quick bio of yourself before you start, or how do you want to do this?
Um, I guess I'll do a really quick one,
Yeah.
just because yeah, it'll take long, but essentially, yeah. So my name is Iris Gill. I'm a female queer DP from Toronto. I started by way of writing, and then I've kind of went from writing to photography to film. Um, I was first a director, but I actually got into cinematography more so because I was just tired of dealing with like combative men. So I kind of essentially like taught myself all facets of film just so I didn't have to depend on anyone.
Uh-huh.
So essentially, yeah, and I guess when I started DPing and stuff, I really fell in love with it more than I fell in love with directing. So I kind of just stuck with it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, in terms of, thanks for the patience, even. Yeah, and in terms of where I'm at now, I currently work at Video Nerve, which is a division of Publicis, and I'm like a full-time commercial DP. So I shoot commercials and pretty much any content that comes in the door that's under like 50,000. And sometimes I get hired as like an operator for like the bigger companies that work within our building.
Uh-huh.
And I also freelance do like documentaries, music videos, shorts, and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess that's a short little bio. I just don't want to take up too much time talking about myself.
No, that was actually really like a really efficient summary. Um, okay, so I also don't want to take up too much time because we don't like I find it goes by really fast. So do you want to just jump into your top five?
Sure. Sorry, there's someone in the hallway, so my dog.
That's okay.
Okay. Um, so I have five things. The first one. Okay. So the first one, oh my gosh, sorry. 1 second.
That's okay.
King, stop. Okay. So the first one I'm gonna do, I actually got it from my first DP mentor. Shout out to Blair. Um, so he was telling me a story about one of his friends who was a surgeon. And what surgeons do 45 seconds before they actually cut into your body, they do this thing called a surgical pause. So they take 45 seconds to check with every person that it's the right patient, they're using the right materials. Like they literally just like stop everything for 45 seconds just to make sure everything's right. And he related it back to film where because he does a lot of documentary, and he was like, it's really important as DPs and camera operators to do a surgical pause, so to say, and kind of look over your monitor and check all your settings. So that's like, I guess, kind of checking off the boxes, like making sure like your ISO is correct, you're at the right frame rate, um, I don't know, the right lensing, just pretty much just taking a second and just making sure all your settings are correct, because that will really save you in the long run, especially someone like myself who does a lot of documentaries. And I find I'll be doing a lot of like B-roll and then going into interviews. And sometimes you won't remember to change your frame rate from say like 48 or 60 back down to 24. So then you can end up with like some crazy interview that's like way too slow to work with it. So that's like my number one tip is to always do a surgical pause and make sure you just like take 15 seconds and just check over all of your monitor settings just to make sure like you're good to go. Um, yeah, so that's my number one tip.
That's a good one.
Yeah, no, honestly, it actually, no, it really, really saves you because like it honestly takes 4 seconds to look. And like you'll literally be shooting an interview and you'll notice that it's wrong and you can't really stop. And there's also times too where you're unable to re-get the interview or redo the shot or any of that stuff. So if you just honestly take 5 seconds to do like a surgical pause and just make sure you're good to go, it'll honestly save you. And any DP or camera operator can definitely say that they shot something in the wrong frame rate.
Cool. I like that surgical pause.
Yeah. So that's number one. Um, I guess the second thing that I wish I knew that I know now is to honestly focus on story and focus on more exteriors, because I think when we're starting out, we want things to look as good as the people that we look up to.
Mm,
And we forget that the sun is the biggest free light source that we can really get.
mm,
So I think it makes sense to focus on stories or build worlds that live outside, because we're able to create images similar to other people if we're able to like cut and shape light. And it's way easier and cheaper to borrow like cutters, flags, diffusion, and stuff like that to play with natural light versus, I don't know, trying to spend thousands of dollars to like rent expensive equipment.
mm.
So I think that is definitely my number two tip is yeah, focus on story and exterior. And yeah, I guess focusing on story is super important too, because I think in the beginning, because you don't have, I guess, like the technical knowledge to execute in the way that you always want, if you focus on story, people will actually be more inclined to kind of follow you on your journey
Cool.
of the story. Like there's a reason why you'll watch docs. Think your thing froze.
Yeah,
Okay,
you
now you're
froze.
back up. But
Can
yeah,
you just
so
go
there,
back? So, maybe like just like
oh
one
yeah,
sentence? Yeah.
yeah, sure. So I was saying, yeah, so focusing on story is super important because when you're kind of coming up, you don't have the resources to like shoot in the ways that you want or have the gear that you want, but people are often more inclined to follow you as a creative on your journey if you're telling stories that they find like captivating or it makes sense and stuff. So you don't always have to have like the best lit or the best shot or anything like that. It's just like, yeah, focus on a captivating story and people will actually be around as you like grow and like get better, because it's really hard to teach someone storytelling, but you can teach someone like camera moves or like tech and stuff like that. So yeah,
Mm,
I think when you're coming up, really play around and like focus a lot more on story, because I think I spent a lot of time not doing anything really because I don't know, I was too hung up on like, oh, I want it to look like the people I look up to, I want it to be like this, or I'm not going to do anything until I can actually rent stuff. But that actually prevents you from like learning and growing. So I think, yeah, that's definitely number two is
yeah.
focus on story and exteriors. And also people are more inclined to let you borrow like their grip equipment, like flags, CSADs and stuff like that, more so than they would let you borrow like their lights or their cameras or their lenses. So definitely use outside as much as you can and build stories around outside.
Is that just because the equipment is cheaper? The ones like you
Well,
said,
no,
lens?
well, because like, so grip stuff is definitely cheaper, but it's like stuff like bounce boards and like diffusion and like things like this that don't really cost much,
Right.
you know? And you can like get mirrors and bounce light through mirrors, and you can do a bunch of really amazing stuff with the sun. And I think a lot of us don't really use the sun enough, especially when we're coming up, because we build all these really cool like interior or like really big ideas. So I think it's really important to, yeah, if you don't have the resources, like use a resource that like the world has.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's my number two. Um, okay, so my number three is gonna sound a little bit elementary. However, it's still very important. So I think when we start out, say we do rent cameras, I always say obviously it's important to like prep and test everything. But I think one thing that often a lot of us do is we don't check the little things. So, for example, if I rent, say, a camera package, tripod, X, Y, and Z, I'll definitely open up the camera. I'll take the batteries out. I'll get those charged. I'll make sure everything's in there, X, Y, and Z. But it's the things like having the screw on the tripod plate that could be missing, or an adapter that you need to mount onto a lens, or like all those little things. So I think it's really, really important um, to not just prep the bigger items, but also the little stuff. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't really do in the beginning, because you just like prep the camera, but then you'll look and you'll be like, wow, I can't use a shoulder mount because the plate doesn't fit the camera, or I can't use this because this doesn't work. But this is something you could have prevented had you like checked on it like the day before or whatever. So I think it's really, really important to prep before. And I don't think I really prepped too much. I was just like so excited. I was like, yeah, I got everything. Just look at a few things. So I think yeah, it's my third thing is to make sure you prep all the little things, all the side stuff. And I think another thing too is when you're starting out, you don't have access to like cameras and gear very often. So when you do have it, you're not very instinctual, you're not very fast with like going through camera settings and doing stuff like that. So when you do rent a camera, if you can, like try to really like go through each camera setting and figure out like what to do. And also think like, what are you gonna do in the day? If you know you're gonna be going from interviews to slow-mo, then figure out like how do you do slow-mo? How do you change the setting? How do you do this? So that way on the day, it's not a situation where I've used this camera before, but I can't remember. It's no, last night I gave myself a little brush up and I figured out how to do X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
So I think that will really help a lot of people starting out because I think it's like when preparation meets a project, like you'll always do well. So it's always good to over prepare yourself. And yeah, so I think that's definitely my number three is to like go over your prep because I've actually been on a job before where I rented a tripod and there actually wasn't a screw in the mount. And I actually did see it and I'm like, oh perfect, the tripod's there, everything's good. And then I get there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no screw. And like, I couldn't really find it in that moment. So I literally had to like prop the camera on a chair, on a book, and do interviews like that all day. But I could have checked earlier and I would have avoided that. So I think definitely prepping like the little things is something that I wish I did earlier. Um, Number four. Um, so my number four is gonna be use music videos to figure out your style. Um, I think when you're first starting out, you kind of you know what you like and you know what you're into, but you don't really know how to execute it properly. But I think music videos are such a good playground for learning because when you start out, you often shoot for like your friends or like, you know, like your friends who do music and stuff like that. So, oh, sorry. Yeah, you often shoot for friends and stuff, and they're very forgiving with anything because they typically don't really pay you. So you're able to actually like try different setups, try different lighting plans. Yeah, just go through like different things to really allow yourself the opportunity to play around. Like it's like for me when I started out, like even if I did have a shot list and a plan and whatever I wanted to execute with the artist, 9 times out of 10, because they are my friend, I could literally be like, hey, I want to try something and maybe take 15 minutes and try out a cool shot or try out something that I've been wanting to try out because like there's actually room for it in music videos. And another thing that that a lot of people don't realize, it's like music video is all about personal choice and creative decision. So even if you're beating yourself up about a decision that you made or you don't like something, someone else can think it's a creative choice and they love it and they think it's brilliant. So I think really just have fun with music videos and just learn and try things because there's actually no wrong way to do music videos. I think more more so in other genres like doc, narrative, commercials, like there's definitely like formulas to doing them. Even though they're all different, there's certain ways. But when it comes to music videos, it's limitless. Like the song doesn't have to match the lyrics, doesn't have to match the video, the colors don't need to be the same. You don't even have to have the artist in the music video. Like there's literally no limit. So I think that when you're starting out, definitely dive into music videos, but don't get stuck there. Yeah, because that's definitely a big one. I think a lot of people coming up, they get stuck in music videos because like they grow up doing them and they get known for it. So definitely learn your style and what you like through music videos, but also venture and do other things.
Huh.
So that's my number four tip. Let me see. Yeah, and then my number that I feel like no, but don't really do is that I wish I knew that I didn't have to say yes to everything, but also I wish I knew that I could say yes under certain terms that worked for me. So, for example, I think when you start out, you're so eager to get jobs. When people ask you to do something, you're like, yeah, I'll do it, or that sounds great, or whatever, regardless of rate, regardless of how physical the job's gonna be, regardless of how much you're gonna do, all these different things. And I think that we need to realize that we have more power even when we're starting out. Like you can literally say if someone reaches out and they're like, oh, I have $250 to do, I don't know, shoot this concert. Can you do it? Say, for example, you live super far. You're allowed to say like, yes, I'll do it for this rate, but can you add $50 for transportation? Or yes, I can do this if you guys can cover transportation. Like there's little things that I think that all of us don't realize that we can say or do that actually will help us. Because like for myself, like I grew up in Pickering in the suburbs. So it takes like an hour and a half to get into Toronto. And I used to be so excited to get jobs, and I didn't want to ever be that person that was like a burden, or like, oh, can I get a ride, or is anyone else coming from this area? But I think even like in smaller roles as a PA, like you can say these things. You can be like, yeah, I would love to do this job, or I would love to do this shoot. However, can someone arrange X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
Or even if, like, say for example, someone's like, oh, can you do like this crazy job? We don't have that much money. Um, we only have like, we just want you, one person, director, DP, da 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 da. Like you can say like, yes, I would love to do this job if you guys can find the budget for me to have an assistant or for me to have another crew member. Because I think too, when we're starting out, because the rates are so low, we tend to go out solo and break our backs and kill ourselves because we're like, this person's paying me $300. I can't really split that with someone because it's not that much money, but also I don't deserve to like crush my body to do this job. And I think that people don't realize that you have the agency to be like, hey, I would love to do this job for you. Do you think you have an extra $200 in the budget so I can have an assistant? Or do you think that someone can help me? Like, I just think that we often say yes to terms that are so unrealistic, and we kill ourselves to do them because we want the opportunity. But honestly, we can definitely say no, or we can say yes to certain terms. So I think that's a big one because like I've said yes to so many things that I shouldn't have said yes to, or things that I said yes to where I should have got help. Like even for example, when you're starting out, you do PA a lot, and often when you're PAing, that could mean you picking up a truck, going to White's by yourself, and loading up a crazy truck. And PMs think that when you get to White, someone is gonna help you. So in their mind, they're not thinking like, oh, we should send someone with this person. They're just thinking, oh, it's a warehouse. There's a bunch of guys. Like someone's gonna help. But then you get a situation where like they do help sometimes, but when you go to these rental houses, they're really, really busy. So it'll be a situation where they'll roll all these tubs out and put in a certain area, and you just have to make the trips and just do what you got to do by yourself. And I think people don't realize like you can say like, wow, this order is really big. Is it possible that another PA can help me? Or is it possible that someone else can kind of help me? And nine times out of 10, they can't really say no because you're pretty much saying like, this is a huge job for one person. And if they do say no, then you can also just say no to the job because you know it's going to crush you to do.
Mm. Wow.
You know what I mean? So I think, yeah, I think that's definitely like a big one. It's just like, just knowing that like you have a lot more power. You don't have to say yes to everything. You can say yes to things with certain terms. Um, and yeah, just really be an advocate for yourself, I guess, because this industry, like when you're starting out, you're at the bottom of the food chain. And I think that when you're at the bottom of the food chain, they treat you like that. They don't really care about certain things that you would care about. You know what I mean? So I think that we really have to advocate for ourselves beforehand versus
Yeah.
doing it like on set or whatever the case may be, because you can eliminate a lot of the things that make things harder on you, you know, like for like getting help, transportation, like all these little things that you can definitely like say yes and no to. So I think, yeah, I think that's definitely my number five tip.
That's a hard one, I think. Well, first of all, I think we made really good time. It's like
I
very
know I went through
out.
them really, really fast.
No, but actually that's perfect because it's like about halfway through. But on that last one, I felt it just reminds me of so many things I've heard from particularly women filmmakers. It's like that you have to learn to say, and it's not even just with film, it's in so many industries, right? Like you have to learn to say no, right? Because
Yeah,
so many of us have been trained to say yes to everything. And I guess with film, there is this sense of like a scarcity of jobs and like paid good.
exactly. And that's the thing too. So it's like you get jobs and you're just like, and even like myself being a person of color, because I don't get as many opportunities, I feel like every opportunity is like one that I should take.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like sometimes they're not. And also I think too, like people should also know that like you can sit with something and you don't have to respond right away. So for example, if someone emails you and they want to do a short, I'm not saying obviously take days to respond, but you don't have to respond like in that moment. You can actually take time to think about it. You could take time to Google the production, Google the people behind it. If you know someone that knows that person, like do the research, because you also sometimes will say yes to a job and not realize that you're doing way more than what they're paying you, or way more than you thought. You know, it's like, oh, it's just a 1 day documentary, and then you didn't realize that you're the only person and you're lugging stuff up a mountain to shoot someone. Like just these little things. So I think like definitely like yeah, ask a lot of questions too. Like ask questions, read your emails, read everything all the way through, and like ask people's feedback, because a lot of times when you're starting out, people know that you won't say no to things, so they'll definitely push you to your limit, or they'll ask you like last minute things that are really really unrealistic. And
Um,
yeah, just know that you have more agency, and you can definitely say no. You don't have to say yes to everything.
so by like saying yes to things, you're just like perpetuating the cycle, really, I guess. Like because you
Yeah.
assume that, oh, like, well, this is how you can treat a PA, right?
Oh, 100%, 100. And that's the thing too. It's like I think we also have to set that standard. Like I
Uh,
think when I was paying a lot, there was only one PA, and the last couple of jobs that I've worked on that had PAs, there was always like two per truck, or there was a lot more people on different sets. And I think that's probably implemented slowly after people being like, you can't just have one PA. You can't just have this. You know what I mean? So I think yeah, it's definitely us like putting our foot down and saying like what is and isn't acceptable in certain things. And just yeah, because producers and PMs and all these, they just want to get their job done, they just want to get their project done, and I respect that, but you have to realize that there's a human at the other end of these apps.
yeah, I feel like that can apply to so many situations right now. Just like
Oh,
remember,
of course,
there's a human on the other end
of course, of
talking.
course.
Um, okay, so actually, do you want to add to your list since we have time, or do you want to just head straight into the Q&A
Let
portion?
me think, what else did I wish I knew then that I didn't know now? Oh, this is, I guess this is more so for people who are DP or camera operators that also edit or do anything like that. Hard drive management. I have to actually bring this up because you can lose projects, mix up where your projects are, and honestly, hard drive management is actually one of the most important things in this industry, because there'll be times where I'll shoot something, maybe no lie, maybe like 3 years ago. And someone will email me, they'll be like, hey Ash, I hope you're doing well. I was just wondering if you still had the footage for X, Y, and Z. And to be honest, I normally keep footage for like 6 months
Mm.
after I do a job. But on the off chance, say I do have it on a hard drive, I literally like, I want to actually show you. Hold on. Some of these are work hard drives and some of these are personal, and these are only like some. So if someone asks me for a project, I don't want to go through all of these. So what I've been doing is I've been actually like labeling and logging all my drives.
Mhm.
And I think that's super important, because you can just go to an Excel sheet and just type in like this concert or this music video. Honestly help you, and I really wish I knew that. And I actually have to now organize all these hard drives that I've been collecting over the last 10 years and system. I definitely think something that I wish I knew in the beginning, really know your drives, be super organized. Um, yeah, because it'll really really save you.
So just like take the time
Trying to
to
think if
label
there's any
things.
other things. Your thing's cutting out.
Yeah, you too. What? You're kind of freezing up for me too, a little bit. Uh, I
You're
feel
loading.
you're okay
Okay,
right now. Really. I can. Oh wait, still loading.
okay, there we go. Now you're back up. Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Oh wow. Yeah, your thing's kind of lagging a little bit. Um,
Oh no. Yeah,
yeah,
you
I'm
keep
trying to.
freezing up too. But I heard what you said. Oh, bad connection.
Okay, now your video's back.
I don't know what's going on. It's not usually this bad.
Okay, can you see me?
I can see you, but yeah,
Okay,
yeah, it's a bit of a
it's
delay,
it's
but
still
not.
frozen. Okay.
I can hear you though.
Um, okay, yeah. I think that's pretty much, I think that's honestly like my top five. Like those are the most important things. Like surgical pause, focusing on story and exteriors. All
Okay.
of the tips were so good. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And just honestly, like just have fun too. Like I think when you're starting out, like we all really like just obsess over like what people think and how our art's gonna look. And to be honest, you only get better the more you do. Like every project that you do, you're always gonna do something better because you learn every single time. So I think that like just take the pressure off yourself and don't feel so stressed out about what you're doing. Like just have fun, just grow, just learn. Um yeah, and just do a lot of trial and error. And I think also one thing I super want to mention is I think as people of color, because we don't get a lot of opportunities, it's really important to give them to ourselves by doing things like spec work. And for those who don't know what spec work is, it's like speculation work, I guess essentially that's probably the term for it. But it's if I wanna say I wanna shoot for I don't know, say I wanna do a shoot for No Frills, then go to No Frills, get a bunch of groceries or whatever, and just kind of um shoot like a little commercial centered around No Frills and their groceries, and you can actually pitch it to those companies, and they may actually like pick it up or work with you. And I think because we don't initially get a lot of opportunities, it's really important for us to do spec work and stuff because spec work is what can actually fill up your reel and make it seem like you've worked with these brands or you've done a lot more than you have, but you actually have done the work. You just haven't done the work with these brands. So I
Hmm.
think it's really important too for people to do spec work because it's legal. Like there's nothing wrong with doing it. You just have to make sure that you actually say like, this is not actually da 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 da. This is like, this is spec work. This is me just whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, like a lot of people get a lot of work doing spec work, to be honest.
Huh. That I did not know about at all.
Really?
That's completely like, well, especially with filmmaking, just because I'm not in the industry. Um, but it makes me think of even with scripts, like writing screenplays, like spec scripts, which are
Yeah.
basically like samples, right, that you can send out to people, and it's the same if you want to get a book published as well. Like you're just sending it
Yeah,
out.
it's very similar to that. And I think like what goes in hand with spec work too, it's like you can also do like trailers. I think
Mm,
people don't really do that very often, but it costs a lot less to put together a 30-second trailer of like shots or snippets that you would have put in your short film or in your feature or whatever, because that's almost a calling card to get funding because you have to realize like we're all very visual people,
mm,
like humans in general, we're very visual, and I can tell you an idea and you can imagine it, and you can say like, oh, this is a great idea, but if I was to show you 20 seconds of a trailer, that will suck you in. It'll actually make you be like, yeah, I want to see this film, or like, where can I see this? And I'm like, well, it's not a thing yet because I don't have funding, but if you would like to, you know what I mean? And you kind of open up the dialogue that way, and it also allows you to actualize what you want. Like you've created a trailer of something that you're trying to create, which is also a way to inspire you.
that's a really great tip, especially for people who are shy. I feel like that's like a really like if you're not because I know a lot of artists are really not big on networking. They find
Mm-hmm.
that really
Mm-hmm.
intimidating, but I feel like that's a great visual way of like getting someone's attention. That's like really work focused as opposed to like
Yeah.
people skills, I guess.
And it also shows people like what you're capable of and kind of like where your eye is because people can look at something and know like, yeah, this project doesn't have the resources or it doesn't have the right lighting, but if they look at it and they're just like, honestly, if we gave this person like $20,000, like this can be amazing, or if we did this, or if we, you know what I mean? Like they can actually look at something and be like, this is what we need to do to fix it, or this is what we do to need to make it better in X, Y, and Z. But it's just really hard for you to go into a meeting and just have a script and be like, oh, I think you guys should, you know? So I think, yeah, so definitely doing like spec work and trailers and stuff like that will really, really help because I think it's less about us not being, what's the word I'm trying to say? Because I was talking to someone about this and it's not that we, like, we don't have work that's as good as other people. It's just we don't have enough work. Like it's like people's reels will be like 45 seconds long or a minute long and there's like 3 projects on it. But if you fill that up with spec and even a trailer, because your trailer honestly looks like pieces of a short film that would go into a reel anyways.
Mm,
Because at the end of the day, like in this industry, like reels are what sell you to people.
mm,
And if we wait on the opportunity to build on our reels, we will never get to where we want to be.
true.
So yeah, because like and your reel has to be sellable. That's why I'm saying like if your reel isn't sellable, you focus on story, you focus on the emotions because people will connect with that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that it's like this.
That's cute.
Yeah.
That name is
But yeah, no.
that name is
But yeah, no.